Piaget was interested in cognitive development. Cognitive development refers to the way in which we basically think, the way that we acquire, organise, remember and use information. It's the way in which we change from a baby who doesn't really know very much about the world around them through to a child, an adolescent, an adult who understands different mental concepts about the world. Obviously, cognitive development then can't be directly observed. We don't know what's happening in your head when you look at something, when you're thinking about it. Young children in particular can't tell us what they're thinking and often don't have the words to express the true meaning of what they're thinking, even if we could ask them. And very young children obviously can't answer us at all. So a lot of our knowledge in this area has to be inferred from behaviour that young children show. Piaget was a French guy. He did a lot of work in this area. He argued that mental abilities developed as we adapt to the changing world around us. He used two terms in particular, assimilation and accommodation, to describe how we adapt to the world around us. So he said adaptation is the continuous process of using the environment to learn and of learning to adjust to changes in the environment. He said it has two processes, assimilation and accommodation. Basically, what he's talking about here is when a child learns about something new, they might assimilate it into a concept that they already have. So, for example, let's say you've got a kid who's playing with some Matchbox cars, and you come along and you give them a toy truck. So they look at it, they think, okay, it's got four wheels, it's got a steering wheel, it drives around. They've already got an idea of what a car is, so they assimilate this into that knowledge. They say, okay, this is kind of like a car, it's a big car. So they've assimilated into something they've already got a concept of. On the other hand, accommodation involves coming up with a new concept in your mind because something doesn't quite fit. So that same child might actually look at the truck and think, well, it doesn't fit into this idea that I have of a car. It's got room to put stuff in the back. It's much bigger than a car. It's, it's different. It's just too different for me to think of it just as a car. So that child might begin a new concept in their mind of what a thing called a truck is. So assimilation is when we add stuff to it's almost like a mental file that we already have. And accommodation, it's kind of like making up a new file because the information we're getting is too different. Your job right now is to read through Piaget's adaptation information on page 201 and come up with your own examples of assimilation and accommodation. So just pause this video while you do that and come back. I'll have the pleasure of your company in a few minutes when you're ready to move on. Okie dokie. So let's start moving on now to the really important stuff about Piaget. Piaget's four-stage theory of cognitive development. Piaget came up with this theory that said there are four distinct and sequential stages that a person moves through from birth to adulthood. So what he means there really by distinct and sequential is that they're distinct because they're very different. They're characterised by different levels of thinking and different types of thinking. And they're sequential because you have to pass from stage 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. You can't skip a stage. Now, he came up with some rough ages as to which, kind of correspond with the age range of when you'll go through each of these stages. But obviously, there can be a fair bit of difference. Some people develop more quickly than others. But generally speaking, we've got these age-based stages. The first one of these stages is called the sensory motor stage, and this happens from about birth to about 2 years of age. Sensory, because it's all about what you can see, touch, taste, feel in the world, and motor, because it's about learning that you can respond physically. You can see something over across the other side of the room, decide you want to get to it, and crawl over to it, for example. So sensory and motor. Now, with each of Piaget's stages, he talks about key accomplishments. And basically what he's meaning is at the start of a stage, there are certain things you won't be able to do, and by the end of it, you will have accomplished that. You'll be able to do this idea that he's got. So we'll have a look at the sensory motor stage, and we'll talk about the key accomplishments that he says you should be able to get to by the end of the stage before you move on. So in the sensory motor stage, the infant really is trying to construct an understanding of the world by coordinating their sensory experiences, touch, smell, sight, taste and hearing, with motor abilities, their movement skills. In other words, when kids, for example, as we all know, they see something new and they like to shove it in their mouth. Really what they're doing there is trying to use the taste and even the touch of that object and possibly the smell of it as well to figure out what it is. Is it valuable to them? Is it something that's interesting to them? What on earth is it? So a lot of things to babies are brand new. They just want to figure out what it is. By about 3 months of age, an infant has figured out that they can reach for a toy that's within an arm's length. This involves coordinating the side of the toy with the movement of the arm and realizing that you can reach and grasp the toy. Children also develop the ability to carry out what we call goal-directed behaviour in this stage, and this is what Piaget was really interested in. So what he's saying with goal-directed behaviour is that babies will try different techniques to try to get what they want, and they'll employ some problem-solving techniques. So let's take, for example, the 18-month-old who wants a toy that's on a table. He pulls himself up trying to reach it, but he can't reach it because it's right in the middle of the table and his arms aren't long enough. So he pulls the table up until the toy slides closer to him. That child has demonstrated a goal-directed behaviour. They wanted the toy, they employed some problem-solving skills, they pull the toy over to them, and they've got it. Now, that's for an 18-month-old baby. That's a fairly well-developed child, almost towards the end of this stage, so they are doing goal-directed behaviour. A younger baby might not yet have the ability to do goal-directed behaviour, but by the end of the sensory motor stage, babies are carrying out goal-directed behaviour. Still in the sensory motor stage, at around about the same time that the child learns to crawl, which is about, give or take, 7 months old, they also develop the concept of object permanence. So this refers to the understanding that objects exist even when the child can't see them. Before this, if you get a baby, pretty much what happens is, as soon as they can't see an object, it's like it doesn't exist. So for example, if you show a little baby a toy, they might like it. If you take it away again, they'll very quickly forget about it. It's like they can't see it, it doesn't exist, out of sight, out of mind. And then when you show it to them again, they're all excited over again because it exists again. So this could explain, for example, why peekaboo is such a truly hilarious game for young infants, because you're there and then you're not there and then you're there again, and it's crazy because you sort of went away and you didn't exist anymore and you're back. And probably why older infants like to play it with themselves by hiding toys, because they know the secret and they think they're kind of, oh, look at me, I know that that thing really does exist. Kids are so easy to entertain. Piaget says that once a child understands object permanence and can carry out goal-directed behaviour, they'll move into the next stage. How could you test to see if a child had achieved this? How would you know if they're ready, if they are in the next stage? You need to have a bit of a think about that. You might want to pause this video, think for 5 or 10 seconds, see if you can come up with an answer. Your job. In your books, under the heading of Piaget's 4-stage theory of cognitive development, write a summary of the sensory motor stage. Include definitions of the terms object permanence and goal-directed behaviour. Pause this video while you do that. Did you pause the video and do that job, or are you just pretending to have done that? Okay. Once you've done that, there is a little video for you to watch which might help you out with understanding this. It's just in, whoopsie daisy, I just temporarily lost it. It's in the Moodle page. So go to the Moodle page, Year 11 Psychology. Everyone hopefully by now knows how to get into the Moodle page. Come on down to where it says Piaget videos. And it's not here. This is embarrassing. Please ignore that little hiccup. The video relates to the next section. So let's move on to the next section. Pre-operational stage, from the ages of 2 to 7. This stage involves far more sophisticated thinking than the sensory motor stage. Children become far more able to assimilate and accommodate events from their environment, and they start to internally represent events. They start to think about them in their heads without having to say them out loud, which is actually a pretty big achievement because younger children actually pretty much say everything that they're thinking out loud. It's why small children can be annoying. Also, what happens in this stage is symbolic thinking starts to develop. This is the ability to use symbols such as words and pictures to represent objects. For example, I saw my nephew pick up his sister's Barbie doll when he was about 3, and he used the doll as a gun in his robber's game. So he's able to take what's clearly a female figure and pretend it's a gun. Another example of symbolic thinking is even the ability to learn to read and write. Because if you think about it, let's take, for example, this word here, this. This has a lot of meaning to us because we know what these letters mean. But in actual fact, this is just a line, and this is just a line, and here's another line with a squiggle, and a line and a dot and a squiggle. This only has meaning to us because we've learnt how these symbols, these letters, how they work together to create a pronounceable word, and what that word means. So this is pretty high-level thinking to understand that what's essentially just a scribble on the page actually holds a really important meaning, the meaning of a word. So this is what we mean by symbolic thinking, understanding that one thing can actually stand for or represent something else. In this case, these stand for letters that have a whole meaning on their own. In the pre-operational stage, we generally have children that are egocentric. Egocentric just means that a child generally can't see things from other people's perspectives. It's not to say that they're selfish as such, but they just can't consider anybody else's point of view. For example, if a child likes the colour blue and you ask them what colour they think that you like, they'll say blue because they assume that everybody else is the same as them. So they just assume that what you experience in your life is the same as what they experience in their life. So egocentrism, centering on themselves and thinking everyone else in the world is the same as them. You'll notice there's a card experiment described in your book on page 205, whoops-a daisy, where what Piaget did was he got some kids in this stage and he showed them a card that had a picture on the front and a picture on the back. So the front might have, for example, a star, and the back might have, for example, a circle. So he faces that card, him and the child are sitting opposite each other at a table. He shows the kid the side of the card that has the star. He says, "What can you see?" And they say, "I can see a star." And they'll turn it around and say, "What can you see?" And now they're looking at the back, so they'll say, "I can see a circle." And he'll ask, "What can I see?" And the kids at the start of this pre-operational stage, because they were egocentric, they're looking at the circle. They'd say, "Well, you can see a circle," because that's what they can see. They don't realise that I'm on the other side of the table to this guy, so actually he's seeing something different to me, because they can't get over that egocentrism. By the time a child loses egocentrism, that's one of the key accomplishments of getting through this stage or developing that ability and moving on to the next stage. Now here's where we have ourselves nice little YouTube examples. Again, this time it's on the Moodle page. So go to the Moodle page for Year 11 Psych, scroll down to Piaget videos, and it's the first one here, egocentrism. So you can pause this video while you go and find that on the Moodle page. Enjoy.